But you like American pickers? Oh, it sucks getting old. We went to a place yesterday called Approve Accessories. Chiefs.
Hello?
Hey, this is Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I was in there yesterday with my wife, and she bought a ring from you, remember?
Okay, okay.
I got some Mobil oil stuff I'd like to sell back to you.
Okay, yeah, bring it up by. Let me check it out.
Okay, hey, I'm doing a video series right now, and I'd love to come and do my video series at your shop and give you some advertisement and stuff, and if you'd like it.
What kind of video?
It's YouTube video, and I'm doing a life series about some of the things that happened in my life.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm gonna be telling the story about when I worked at Mobil Oil.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know what? Come on in and we can talk about that.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, man.
Okay, okay, we'll see you in a while.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Episode 10 begins right now. I think I'm gonna need these today. There's a lot to look at. Oh, this is gonna be fun. I think. Who knows? May go the other way. May not be fun. Oh well. Let's drive and talk.
Luinator 59, Luinator 59, Luinator 59. You should follow Luinator 59.
In my last video, you saw where Mobil Oil asked me to go to work for them. And that was really cool. And I mentioned that, oh, that was flat out amazing. I mean, that stuff doesn't just happen to everybody every day, but it happened to me. And the rest of the story is just as interesting, and that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk about working. I'm going to talk about what I did. And as you know, I attribute it all to God. So we're gonna go see Chiefs. In fact, you gotta meet Chief. Chief is just a really nice guy. He gave my wife a screaming deal on this ring yesterday. Yeah, that's what we did on my wife's birthday. We went to breakfast and then we came to Chief. Check this Indian out. This is what caught my eye driving down the street. This thing is cherry. He wants $35 for it. And boy, I could see myself riding down the road on one of these. Whew. You know, I don't know. That thing's so pretty, you'd probably have to just, oh, I don't know, you'd have to park it. It's just too beautiful. So anyways, let's go meet the Chief. Well, I tell you, every time I walk in here, I can't spend enough time here. Hey, Chief. Oh, by the way, my name is Lou. In fact, I'm Luinator 59.
Luinator 59?
Luinator 59. That's right. And, well, anyways, before we go getting into the good stuff, you know, you don't have to buy anything.
Okay, sounds good.
All right? But you might want to buy some stuff. You might not want to buy some stuff.
Okay.
But, yeah, I got this when I first started. I was working in the game. And, man, I wore this belt buckle like crazy. Now, the thing that's cool about this, Team Mobil West was the West Coast division that managed everything east of the Rockies, or west of the Rockies. So we had all the pipelines, all the terminals, all the trucking stations, all the tank car deliveries, the refineries, all of that. I did multiple things. What do you call it? Oil memorabilia, oil field memorabilia, what's it called? Petroleum. Petroleum.
You got a gargoyle.
Oh, this is sweet, isn't it? I mean, feel the weight of that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I sold the gargoyle sign.
But anyways, the different managers that came through. So this is a mixture of marketing, refining, and pipelines.
What is it now?
Well, they just sold it. Now it's the pipeline systems. Yeah, they just sold their whole West Coast operation.
How many times did Mobil get sold? Or traded?
I don't
or
know.
under new management, or under a different name? Because as far as I know, it is Mobil Gas.
Yeah, well, there was Williams, there was Mobil Gas, Coney. You know, it all went back. They had to keep breaking it up to keep monopolies from forming.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm surprised that they let Mobil Oil get as big as they got, or ExxonMobil get as big as they got. Let's see, that goes like that. Oh, this is pretty cool. Commemorative watches.
ExxonMobil.
I had a bunch of watches that were given me. Actually, here's the story on this. Now I remember it. We had a bunch of guys come from Africa.
Okay.
We were starting a new project. We put in new pipelines and everything, and we were supposed to teach these guys the business, so they came over and trained with us. And at the end of the project, after they were all trained, and boy, we developed some great friendships. But after the project, they gave those watches out to everybody who was involved. So that's really a one-of-a-kind thing. This is really cool. Got the letter. The wings are intact. Everything's perfect. Isn't that pretty?
What is it about?
It's a Pegasus.
I know that's what it is. Like a weight, like a paperweight?
Yeah, it's a desktop thing.
Like desktop.
You know. Pegasus, the powerful flying horse of Greek mythology, has been associated with Mobil for nearly a century. The old boss, Lou Noto. The guy who took over from Lou Noto, does anybody know who that one is? He's high up in the United States government right now.
Is it?
Yeah. Rex Tillerson. If you don't know that name, you need to look it up. He's influencing your life, and boy, did he influence mine. And then this one is probably the most delicate. Another desktop award. Now, what's so delicate about that?
Oh, yeah,
is the
it's
wings. The wings did not survive. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Of course, you see cool stuff all the time.
And an antenna ball.
Yeah.
Get the antenna ball.
Is that rare? It was quite a career, and I really enjoyed myself a lot. But basically, it fed my family. And when I left it, I ended up leaving with PTSD. Just like, you know, we send guys off to war, they come back and they're all beat up and scarred. Oh man, working for ExxonMobil, beat up and scarred all the way in. Internally, forever. Yeah, forever. Forever and ever.
Wow.
Until I die, of course.
I don't know what's worse, externally or internally.
I think they're both equal. You know, the older I get, I'm slowing down, and I don't like that. In my heart, I'm still 18 years old.
They're old, they don't function like a new
Chief
one.
just got a customer in, so I'm going to let him do his business. I'm going to come over here and show you part of his... Oh, man, look at this. I didn't see this yesterday. Ah, I dig that. Now, Joe, check this out. Check all those razors out, dude.
Oh, okay. The round one, black. It looks more like a pull-up something that I should.
You're talking about a pop-up.
Yeah, kind of like a pop-up. Those
So,
are worth the
you
size.
just put them in here.
Oh, you know, this guy has a really good eye. I'm going to have to ask him about it. Where does he get all of his stuff from?
Yeah, it's kind of
Look at the radios. I mean, I'm telling you, this is American Pickers West Coast, this shop. It's awesome. What on earth? Is that one of the old? It is. This is one of the old hair machines, I think. Electric hair curler. That's a hair curler. An electric hair curler. Look at that. Can you imagine sitting underneath that and having all those clips attached to your head? I mean, that's just like, no way. I like the old lockers too. Oh, woodworking equipment. That's cool. You've got to come to Whittier. If you're in this area, come to Chiefs. Tell Chiefs Luinator59 sent you. And pick up something. He's got all these little tiny small things that, oh God. You remember rat rods? Remember? Look at that. That's Rat Fink, man. Star Trek dolls. Howdy doodies. Old Coke bottles. Hey, that was in our episode. Now, yeah. Now here's what I'm talking about. Coke bottles. Used to take them to the store, trade them back for money. I would buy this if I had a place. If I had my big barn still, I would buy this. It'd be sitting in my barn. It's just something about the majesticness of the American bison. I mean, glad it's not snotting on me. Wow, he's got hubcaps. This guy really has a good eye for stuff. Look at all the knives. Man. Oh, cigarette lighters. Everybody loves cigarette lighters. You know, my dad had a bunch of old cigarette lighters. I bet you I still got them somewhere.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I've seen a lot of different people here.
Oh, a weenie whistle. I want the weenie whistle. I'm gonna leave here with that weenie whistle. Oh, you know what? I got one of those dolls too. It was my dad's. That one's in better shape than mine, but oh, I'm gonna have to ask him about it.
Okay, and then I have another thing. My dad and my uncle, they call
Felix. Man, Felix, when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite cartoons. The Lone Ranger. Oh, and Tonto. You're kidding me. That's incredible.
You plug it in and it still works. You turn it around and it's like,
I like the big boys. You know I like the big boys. I like Charlie Brown. Look at all those cars.
yeah, it's bigger.
Tons of cars. Oh, look at that. Holy Angels of Mercy. Look at this. Oh my gosh. That's incredible. Wow. That's incredible. I love the flag too. That's a nice flag. Ooh, pocket watches, keys. I wonder what he's getting for that. Man, this guy has some really good eyes. Oh, look at this sign. That sign is so cool. Look at these hats. Man, no way. I had this bike when I was a kid, but mine was yellow. And my banana seat was like a fluorescent yellow. Wow. Wow, look at these. Oh man, look at these. Look at the manicure sets. Those are awesome. You've probably noticed right now, I do a lot of, oh my God, look at this. That's the way I am. I get blown away by things. And when it comes to antiques and reliving the past, I kind of get blown away by that. Boy, I was really nervous when I came into the shop because I've never done anything like this, coming into a store and trying to do a video. And I still haven't really talked about what I really want to talk about, so we'll go there eventually. Oh man, there it is. There she is. What kid didn't have this on his wall? Well, there's probably a couple kids that didn't. Oh, Farrah Fawcett. Oh my gosh. And I guess he sells some things on eBay. We're gonna have to talk a little bit more about that. He gets people that stop in all day, and so well, it's a business. And this is a good business too. Wouldn't this be fun to own? I love nostalgia to a point. I don't like remembering the things that happened at Mobil Oil or ExxonMobil. So yeah, I've got no druthers on price or anything like that. That's not why I came here. You know, I didn't come here to sell things to you. You know, and I really appreciate you letting us in your shop. In fact, I tell you what, you want to take it and sell it, and on commission or anything?
I mean, this stuff is not really that old, you know what I mean?
No, it's not that old, it's not that valuable, it's more of a person who has an attachment to working at Mobil.
Yeah.
Will love it. Exactly. You know, and that's hard to find. You know, that's whatever people can pay. Well, I'll tell you one thing. One thing I did see that I'm walking out with, that weenie whistle. You'd probably do good putting this on one lot on eBay. You could probably find that one person that would just eat it up, especially since just last year ExxonMobil is no longer on the west coast in California.
Right.
Completely gone.
Okay, we'll do that then.
Yeah, sure. We'll build a friendship and stay friends, right?
You got it.
What's going on here?
Well, I started buying stuff when I was about 13 years old, 12 years old. I started collecting Schwinn bicycles.
Oh, by the way, that Schwinn out front, I had one of those.
Oh yeah. And then this was nice too, 1954.
Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, you know, I didn't see that. There's so much to look at here. Oh, I dig the no smoking sign. That's awesome.
So I started as a kid, and then I started building cars and bikes and building my mini bikes, and with that came signs and everything else, and I just dig all this
Oh, no joke.
cool stuff.
This is great. So where do you get most of this stuff?
Out of state.
Out of state.
Out of state. You get a lot of stuff out of state. You gotta go East Coast, Midwest, stuff like that. Places, good places to go to is North Carolina.
The guy I was just talking to, Joe, he's from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North Carolina is a good place. Pennsylvania is another good place.
God, I love that Buck Rogers book.
That's a beautiful
That
place.
is so cool. How much are you getting for that Buck Rogers? I asked you yesterday, but I can't remember.
I think there's 65 of them.
65? That's pretty cool.
But there's like those here. These here, they actually shoot.
Oh yeah, the bang sight cannons. He was showing me this one right here.
Yeah.
This one right here is it's a paper cap gun. All you have to do, there's just a roll of paper in it.
That's
it doesn't
it,
have
paper.
any powder or anything in it. And then see that right next to it, the knife? That's an actual gun. It opens out into a little tiny gun.
Little Uzi.
Yeah. Man, I love the old fire trucks. And these watches. Check these watches out. God, I love that Buster Brown watch. Those watches speak to me right there. Definitely speak to me. Yeah, like I said, you know, it means nothing to me.
Okay.
the money value, no
We'll
big
make
deal.
somebody happy out there. Somebody's looking for one of these items.
Oh man, memories. Gosh, you gotta love memories. That's why I'm doing this video. Gotta create those memories. 'Cause I ain't gonna stay around forever. Neither is this stuff. And by the way, if you saw anything that you wanted and you can't find it online and you want to get hold of Chief, you get hold of me. I'll put you in touch. In fact, I'm gonna take his card. I'm gonna put it at the end of the video. You could get all that information from it. But come see Chief. Come see the shop. It's absolutely awesome. You'll enjoy it. You'll love it.
Oh, they sure will.
Yeah. Chief, thanks.
Thanks
we'll
a lot,
stay
buddy.
in touch.
All right.
You sell that stuff, find somebody good for it.
You got it.
All right, man. Later. God, wasn't that guy great? And the front of his store, man. Let me show you the front of his store again. Chiefs. This is the first video that I've stretched out for a whole week. Normally when I go out to shoot, I just shoot. Do the whole thing one day, one shot. But this one needed a little bit more respect. When I was in Chiefs, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm nervous, I'm uncomfortable, and when I'm nervous and comfortable, I have a hard time speaking. It's something to do with my heart disease, blood pressure, all that stuff. So when I'm standing in Chiefs, I'm fading. That's one of the reasons why I don't work anymore. I was starting to have this problem at work 2 years prior to leaving the company. And well, I didn't leave the company. I got a full retirement. I worked 28 years for them. And now this is the story, and this is what I want to get across. I think everybody's going to have a chance to gain something from this. Back in the days, I hate that term, back in the day, because it doesn't say what day. It's a non-descriptive term. Okay. Back in the 80s, the economy was horrible. In fact, that was why Reagan was elected in. He was a great economist, and he got our nation going again during his presidency. But back in the 80s, it was kind of like it was last year. GDP was way down. Jobs, unemployment was at a record high. It was hard to find a job, really hard to find a job. And we were going through a boom in culture expansion. That made it double hard to find a job. In the 1980s, companies had their doors open to train people. I mean, that's the only way they were going to get skilled labor. The 70s were horrific on the education quality of people being dumped into the workforce. And companies were having a hard time training people, so they were going to be selective. And that's one of the reasons why they were picking from within and training from within. So you go into this company, or I go into this company, and I start working in what they call the gang. That's a common term throughout the working world. Get used to it. Gang, the word roustabout is another one. Well, as true with most industries, when you start as an apprentice, you start down at the bottom. Some people start in the mail rooms. Some people start, well, we're not going to go through that. But when you start in the oil industry, you start in the gang. It's a gang of guys that do hard labor. And through doing that hard labor, you're going to get to learn how the people work together, how to work together with people, and basically you're going to get to learn the company and the business. You just got to shut your mouth, open your ears, and do what you're told. It's simple. And a lot of people nowadays, oh my God, people going into the working force right now are, well, they're dumber than I was. Serious, dumber than I was. So they put me into the gang, and I worked in the gang for only about 3 months. But during that 3 months, I was out on one of the largest oil spills that they ever had. And during that oil spill, we worked day and night, many shifts, and it brought out the hardness in us, you know. And that's what the bosses were looking for. To go, if you wanted to go further in the company, they were looking at somebody that was going to be able to endure. They were also looking to take people and plug them in to a right fit. So immediately they noticed that I had an eye for watching things and understanding how things worked, and they trained me as a station operator. On our system, it was a heavy crude oil system that had to be heated to 180 degrees. And they moved crude oil from the San Joaquin Valley down here to the heavy oil crude oil refineries here in Southern California. So along the way you have heating and pumping stations to get it over mountains and down into the refineries. It's quite an operation, and you've really got to be on top of your game. And I quickly realized that it was station operators in the field watching over that kept the oil leaks from happening. And I rather enjoyed what I was doing. I guess I was enjoying it a little bit too much, because the dispatchers who were manning the computers and watching the pipelines, they noticed that I would fit in good at their main facility in Torrance. So after about 4 or 5 months working as a station operator, they bumped me up. I got kicked up. Of course, remember, I had to learn the hard way. Shut your mouth and open your ears. I had a boss tell me that. And turns out the things that I thought that they were doing ridiculous were being done for a reason. And there was some important reasons. In fact, it saved my life several times, which is cool. So they moved me into this metering station, and I would stay there working for 17 years. But now I was in a job, they called it a delivery gauger. Now, delivery people all of a sudden think driving trucks. And gauger, they think he gauges things. Nobody knows what that is. Well, yeah, they gauge things. Back when I started with the Mobil Oil, it was before there was a large electronic shift. Or no, it was before the electronics revolution. And all the measurement of crude oil purchases, gasoline purchases, jet fuel, diesel, anything that moves through a pipeline was measured from tank to tank. So we would have to go up to the top of a tank before purchase, gauge the tank, take samples of the tank, go back to the laboratory, run them through gravity checks, water density checks, and not water density. You know, one of the things that I'm learning, and it came across to me, is I haven't worked for 10 years now, and it's faded. Ooh, man, I could never go back and do the things I did. So we'd measure it for its water, the amount of water in the oil, and then we would have to convert the volume to 60 degrees. And that gave us our opening volume that was in the tank. And then we would open the valves, align the pipelines, sign the paperwork with the other companies that we were selling to, or start the transaction receipts. And then they would start the pumps and ship the product, or the crude oil. Then once it was over, we would have to go back and close the valves, go back to the tank, we'd have to go up it, we'd have to measure it, sample it again, go through the whole 9 yards, then take plus and minus, and that's how much we sold them. But it had to be down all the way 4 points past the decimal, or 4 places past the decimal, which means oil measurement was a very precise thing. You gotta remember, they're transferring one transfer, let's say 150,000 barrels, 42 gallons in a barrel, of gasoline to another company. Well, we're gonna measure that thing right down to the nth. So that was my job. And then along came electronic metering, and once they installed the electronic meters, then we had to take them all the way down to 4 places past the decimal and prove that those meters were selling exactly what they had to sell. And eventually the tank gauging went away. So, but then the metering was where I excelled. I got in, and turns out computers were coming out at the same time. This is really bizarre. And my boss was given a computer, and he shoved it into his office and only used it for playing card games. I had a bad boss. For 12 years, this guy picked on me. For the first 5, I had an excellent boss who trained me in all facets of the oil industry. I learned refining, I learned pipelines, I learned distribution terminals, I learned trucking, I learned Southern California oil. This guy taught me everything. And then he retired and went off and died, which was really sad. Nice man. But then came another boss who was a very, very, very unethical person who didn't like ethical people. So I worked under him for 12 years, and it was like, they paid me so much money, I wasn't going to open up my mouth. I was just going to listen, take notes, and do things. So he had this computer locked up in his office. Now, this is a funny story. I worked shift work. We had day shift, afternoon shift, graveyards. They were all 8-hour shifts, and we used to work 7 of them in a row. And when I'd get on graveyard, I would go nuts because, well, we hit a time where the pipelines and the oil shipping and the gasoline shipments just got really muddled down, and there wasn't much transactions. It was easy to go into work and find nothing to do. So where other people would sit, I had to keep busy. If I wasn't cleaning, I was doing something else, and I knew what this guy was doing with that computer was wrong, and I knew how much it could help our office. And so I started picking the lock on his door and breaking into his office, going in there, working on things, putting them on discs, sticking them in my pocket, and all of a sudden I'd come out with new forms and stuff. I had bought a computer at home at the same time and immediately broke it and then had to learn how to tear it apart and fix it and buy replacement parts, and it didn't take me long. I completely, in fact, take a look at this picture. Yeah, look at me at the table. Isn't that a crack up? Yeah. When I was at home, I was learning Lotus Notes, and I had started a screen printing business, so I was making designs for my screen printing business and learning how to do my accounting on it. Then I'd go to work and implement everything I knew on the computer that was locked up in the boss's office. Well, it got to the point where I got done so well that we had these big long spreadsheets that we would have to take meter numbers and put it in so that we could keep a handle on how much oil was coming in from the field productions, and that all of it was making it into the refinery and that we didn't have leaks. So I got in, I put it in Lotus Notes, which was like, Lotus Notes was like Excel nowadays. And so I got it to the point where I could put all the numbers in and get that information instantly. No math, no nothing. It did it all for me. Did it fast too. And it was an easy layout, and we didn't need paper. So there became the day where I was in the office and I heard his boss come in and talking to him and said, so what are you doing with your computer? He said, oh, we're learning how to use it. I couldn't take it no longer. I walked in and I said, oh yeah, Larry, come on out here. I want to talk to you about that. And I told him, I said, hey, this guy has no respect for that computer. He doesn't know what it's used for. He doesn't know how to use it. He doesn't know, he plays card games. I said, dig that computer out here, and when you bring it out here, I'll show you what I've been doing. I've been breaking into his office and using it. And eyes just got mad or big and looked at me, and I was thinking, and to myself I was thinking, so what? You know, the guy's a jerk. If worse came to worse, I would start doing the work at home. I mean, that's the type of person I am. I'm gonna make things easier for people, easier for myself, make life better. Larry storms into his office, grabs the computer, rips the cord out from the wall, pushes it into the office, and turns around and says, this bleep bleep thing stays here. And the whole office saw it. And that would just be one of the demeaning things that boss would go to. You know, he was such a bad apple. Everything turned around and bit him in the butt too. Maybe we'll tell that story sometime. But anyways, I stayed in that job and I started writing Excel-based programs that did all of our measurement, even all the way down to I created Excel-based accounting programs, spreadsheets. I revolutionized the whole office there, and they started using my stuff around different parts of the country and adapting it to their areas. And then I came up with an Excel-based proving program. Now, proving a meter is a very hard thing to do. I mean, it takes a very skilled person. But I got it down to the point where all you had to do was be able to press the button, take the reading, enter it, press the button, take the reading, and put in the temperatures, the pressures, and it would do everything for you. It would spit out that drag factor that meters have. Because they're mechanical, they're going to have drag and slippage, and sometimes they start cavitating as they get older and start to wear out. And with the proving, you could find out when that meter is going to go bad. So I was just blowing up with knowledge. I mean, it fit me. I was in the right place, and they put me into the right place. So I worked that job for 17 years. In the last 3 years that I worked there, for doing that, I made $92,000 a year. Had an expense account, all my vehicle insurance paid. And then came the day that boss that pushed that computer out into the office said to me, hey, you're coming down here to Terminal Island, you're gonna work for me. I said, no, I'm happy in the job where I'm at. Look, Lou, it's either you're coming to work for me or it's down the road. Basically what he was saying is that I was going to make everybody look bad, all the bosses look bad, if they didn't elevate me in the company. And I didn't know what that meant. So I went down to Terminal Island and they set me up with this large office, and the boss came in with all these manuals, big thick manuals, and plopped them down on my desk. Boom, boom. And he says, these things are outdated, update them. And I started looking at them. They're all about the marine terminal. I don't know nothing about the marine terminal. And so he looks at me and he says, well, hey, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go out and I want you to inventory everything, take it to the drafting department in Torrance, and have them draw up new plans. Every feature of this marine terminal needs to have a number. So, guess what I did? I got to hop around the marine terminal and start numbering things. And it wasn't too hard. I was able to get all of our prints updated with drafting. And I learned about the marine terminal. Of course, I was asking questions. When you start asking questions, that's when you're inviting the work. And I was liking my job down there. I wasn't liking the pay. The first year I went down there, I took a $10,000 loss in pay. Yeah, and I had kids just going into college. But sometimes in business, that's what it takes, supposedly. Some people say you could be too smart for your own britches, and I think that might be right. Once we got the plans updated and I found out that they weren't using, they had this millions, I forget how much they paid for fire system that they had to put in to be a marine terminal and carry so much gasoline through it. I mean, it was huge. It had big, huge elevated spraying monitors that you could spray from on top of tanks, and foam units that filled tank lids so to put out fires. And man, it was awesome. They even had this unique camera system. Man, you could look anywhere, and this beautiful control system. It looked like it was you were sitting inside a space shuttle, and that you had all these cameras, and you could run the emergency response straight from there. But the more questions I asked, I realized nobody knew how to operate it. I went to the eldest guys working there. Hey, you guys know how to operate that? Well, they came through and told us something, but no. There's a book. We can go get the book. I'm thinking, yeah, the place just burned down and you blew up and your kids are homeless. I mean, your kids are without a daddy. Yeah, or mommy. We had a lot of girls that worked with us. In fact, you know what? It was a really nice environment. There was a lot of everybody there. A lot of different cultural backgrounds. Mobil Oil was, well, it was a worldwide company, but nobody knew how to operate it. So I went and talked to the manager, and I asked him, I said, hey, do you know that nobody knows how to use your fire system? And he was just dumbfounded. Had no idea. So that was my next part that I did, is I trained everybody on the fire systems. Yeah, fire systems. Woo, those were fun to operate. I mean, you could shoot them off in the bay, and it was really cool. So as the water would go down to the surface, it would go permeate the soil and go down, and it turned out they spilled a bunch of oil there in old times. So there was oil into the facility, and it would push it out, and it would leach out into the ocean. So that was the next problem. We had a cleanup mess. I mean, it's like, business can be ran so stupid, and anybody that has any bit of intelligence can get in and do something with it. So it wasn't long until I had all the emergency manuals updated, everybody trained. In fact, they came out with computer-based training, and I got everybody going on computer-based training, which, well, I helped. Mobil Oil developed a whole technical department that took care of it, computers and all that stuff, and IT, and I never had to worry about it after that. Everything was provided for us. So I spent several years at the marine terminal. They had me supervise it for a while. Well, there were other supervisors. We had to do shift work on that, but there was a lot of responsibility. There was a lot of gasoline being brought in by tankers, and I would have to go up on the big tankers, and we would have to measure how much comes out of those tankers and get it into the tanks safely without spilling a drop, and nobody getting hurt. So, and all the regulatory paperwork, and oh gosh, the county, LA County, LA Port, oh, the Port Authority, the state of California. We dealt with a lot. I mean, it was a nightmare. Every time a ship would come in, you'd have this, and then you'd have to make sure your operator was on game, and then everybody was coordinated and knew what to do, and knew what to do in case of an emergency. Man, it took a lot of safety updating. So, you know, it builds working builds a seriousness in you if you let it. I saw a lot of people come there who would come to work and then try to just treat it like it was no big deal. And they would get into the most trouble and have the most problems and be the sorriest when things went awry. So I did that, And then our operation, we had a management change. ExxonMobil restructured and put us on all the pipeline systems underneath the refinery, and we reported to the refinery manager, and all of our offices moved from Terminal Island to the Torrance refinery, including mine, because no longer was I to focus on the marine terminal. I was to focus on Y2K. Oh, yeah, nothing happened during Y2K, right? But there was that thing of the missing digit and how it's going to affect computer systems and what computer systems, and we were so computer system linked now that we really didn't know what it was going to do. So they had me analyze every aspect, and I was with a team out of Dallas. They had us analyze every aspect of what could go wrong and make contingency plans in case it did go wrong, and create a book this thick on what to do. And a second book that had all the logistics information. It was crazy. I had to put people in place up on repeater hills to make sure that if we lost satellite or if we lost communications, that we could at least have line of sight communications with our northern part of our division. And then there was the so you put two people on hills and you got to provide them a motor home and food. I got them some nice big huge steaks. If you're going to spend New Year's on a mountain, you might as well be barbecuing, right? And that's one of the things I did, and what people liked about me is I always took care of people. I love taking care of people because people is what makes us better. So Y2K was nothing. I spent it with a team of people ready to respond at the Torrance refinery, and I called it about, I think it was 2 in the morning, and we said our Happy New Year's, and nothing happened. But the next thing they wanted me to do was start the first of the year developing a reliability program for the West Coast to make sure that we were maintaining and cataloging equipment so that we can maintenance equipment and kind of diagnose when it's going to go bad by taking daily readings. And and guess what that started with? Numbering every piece of equipment on the West Coast. So I had to hire a team of people, and we started assigning numbers and putting it. I was working with another group that provided a database, and we were putting it into this German database called SAP, and it was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. We got all the information in, but then getting the reliability schedules around it and getting the computer to spit out reliability schedules was a whole different thing. And then after that came incident investigations. I had to start investigating every time something broke, and having it I went to firms to find out exactly what part in the metal or the thing broke, and have to diagnose it back to operations, maintenance, human error, or product failure. And that was mind-bending. Now, you got to remember, I came in stupid. So I'm learning as I'm going. And this is what America is supposed to be. So we got that going, and then all of a sudden Mobil Oil was looking really good for sale, and Exxon came in and bought it up, and we became ExxonMobil, moving our communications and headquarters to Houston, Texas, to which Houston dictated to us how we were going to change our business. And one of the first things they said is, we're going to do away with 2 environmental jobs, 1 regulatory job, and 1 safety and training job, and we're going to make 1 job out of it. And Lou, you're going to be the first field regulatory supervisor. Or no, Field Regulatory Safety and Training, FRS. person. That's when I became known as the Luminator, because they had to get rid of some jobs, and took a picture on the motorcycle, all that stuff. If you didn't see it in the video, it's in the video. So all of a sudden I had to travel back and forth to Houston, take programs corporate programs out of Houston, come out and implement them on the West Coast, and make sure that everybody was up to date on it, starting with supervisors. So I was working directly for the West Coast manager. Oh, that's another thing that changed. When Exxon took over, they changed the management system, and we were no longer under refinery. We were a separate logistics pipeline division. And we were part of a bigger ExxonMobil pipeline unit that was comprised of the whole country. So I was our West Coast representative in Houston, and they would give me these corporate programs to come out and implement, and I would have to start and make sure every single supervisor had the material, understood the material. I would go back to Houston for training. I would come back and spend long hours trying to get people to adapt, plus at the same time trying to handle all the regulatory matters, all the environmental matters, doing all of the inspections, and because I was good in an emergency response, or in emergency response manuals, they gave me all the emergency response manuals for the West Coast. Yeah. Now, that was the job that the number 2 on the West Coast. The manager was number 1. The number 2 was supposed to take care of emergency response. She was supposed to take care and make sure all the supervisors. So basically what I was doing was her work. And the company wanted me to do it, and they were paying me to do it. And eventually I still hadn't climbed up. I still hadn't climbed back to that $92,000 a year that I wanted to make. You know, which really stinks. And look at the work I was doing. Big work. So, once I got the job developed, got it implemented, within a year they said, okay, that's implemented, you're gonna hand it off. And I handed it off to another gentleman who I deeply love. And Don Owens, man, you're the best. You always were the best. You did that job far better than I ever did it. Once I handed it off to you, you ran with it. You were a superstar. You did things that I never even thought of. In fact, well, I couldn't do it. I had my hands full. So, what was my new position? My new position was do whatever they wanted. Really intense incident investigations. And we started putting in driving programs and analyzing how people were working and doing safety monitors, and it got really wacky and, well, really in depth. I mean, people felt tied up and locked down, and there became a corporate, just a real heaviness upon every single person working there. And that was happening to me too. I was heading up one of the cool things. I was tracking all the safety and training stats, communicating with Houston still, making sure any corporate implementation was coming out, and we had things going on right and left. And then we got a new manager. And the new manager started buckling down on us in a different way, and scrutinizing us. He treated me bad he started treating me bad. We had these 2 guys who were going to Houston and shooting their mouths off, and word started getting back to the West Coast manager that these guys were shooting their mouths off, and so he thought it was me, and so he grounded me, put me in charge of some real crappy work, pulled me out of circulation, stuck me in a little tiny office, which I called death row. Yeah, see, ExxonMobil, they wanted the people with degrees. they thought coming out of the field, nobody could amount to anything. And this guy had no respect for me. But he would gain respect for me. In fact, 2 years later, he would apologize to me completely and elevate me within the company, put me back into circulation, give me one stomping pay raise, and I was up above $92,000 a year finally. So I was back on top again, and I was doing good. Then that managers move on. And when a manager moves on, the whole culture of the organization changes. And we had a manager coming in from Guam. He didn't quite understand my role in the company because it was kind of created by a manager. It wasn't on the book. I was a special project supervisor. You know, I worked on all the corporate implementing, and this guy wasn't around for that, so he didn't see no value in me. And he started seeing that his number two wasn't doing the job she should be, and so he started putting pressure on her, and she started putting pressure on me, and all of a sudden she decided to change the game plan on some drills, which wasn't right at all. And I'm really, well, a lot of things weren't right. My heart wasn't right. I had gained way too much weight. I had neglected my health. And I was in really bad condition. So I had a heart attack.